What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Eclectic Collector channel. Before we get started, I have a quick announcement that I want to make, and that is that I am now on Patreon. I have started a Patreon. It's $2 a month. It's for anybody that maybe wants to support this channel. It is in no way, shape, or form obligatory. If you do not want to join, you do not have to. You're not going to miss out on anything for the most part. It's just something that I created for anybody that wants to, show some support for the channel. For the most part, I've been doing YouTube for almost 3 years now, and it just felt, like the time was right. I didn't create one, like at the beginning of the channel. I didn't create one like a year into the channel. I waited till this channel was almost 3 years old before I made a Patreon, because I feel like at this point I'm here to stay. You know what I mean? Like, this is a channel that's been here for, to me, a long time, because I've been doing it for almost 3 years. And it felt like the right time to make one. And if you want to support this channel, if you want to, donate, it's $2 a month. If you can, or if you want to, there's no obligations. You know what? I'm not going to hold it against anybody that doesn't want to, join the Patreon. But for the most part, it'll just be like random behind the scenes stuff, stills, what I've got coming up, what I'm going to be reading for videos that are coming up, or maybe anybody that wants to read along or whatever, in anticipation of the next video that I drop on the channel. But again, I said it already, I'll say it again. There's no obligations. You don't have to join it if you don't want to. But yeah, it's for anybody that maybe wants to show some support, and I do appreciate the living hell out of it. I've already gained 2 patrons, and it means a lot to me. It's incredible. I'm super grateful to have them, and I'm super grateful to anybody else that may want to contribute in the future. And with that said, let's get to the point of this. So what we're going to be talking about today are 5 series of manga that I read that came out last year. And the reason that I'm not doing these in a currently reading video is that these came out last year. And for the most part, when I do like my seasonal reading videos, which are the currently reading ones, I usually do like the next one that I have coming up is spring, and I have 5 volumes of manga that I will be talking about in my spring currently reading video. And hey, have you read videos are basically like just random manga. Doesn't really have to be a specific year or anything. It's just 5 random volumes of manga that I happened to have picked up and read. And I got 5 right here that I want to talk about with you all. It's been over a year since the last one I did of these. This is the second one, and I've been planning to do a hey, have you read part 2 video or volume 2 video for the longest time, and it just never got off the ground. And I think I picked up some stuff that will work for that video type, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So let's fan these out real quick, and then we'll jump right into talking about these series. This is Hey, Have You Read Volume 2. Alright, so right off the bat, I want to talk about this series right here. This is God of High School, and the creator of this series is a person named Yonje Park. I'm completely sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, but I'd seen the anime for God of High School, and I couldn't really get into it. I wasn't a huge fan of the anime. I watched like the first part of the anime, and I'd heard people say that the webtoon is a lot better. And this is a manhwa, and I did a video on this channel talking about manhwa that you can check out if you feel so inclined. And yeah, I picked up like 5 random volumes of manga. It was called I've Been Reading Manhwa. And this hadn't been out yet at the time. This came out, I think, last year. And I think I did that video maybe before last year, but I can't really remember 100%. But yeah, pretty much like a tournament sort of a story. I keep wanting to call it a manga, but it's not a manga. It is a manhwa. And for the most part, stories like this, you are kind of like stories where you scroll, like you scroll up, and it's just kind of like a continuous thing, like the action just keeps flowing or whatever. But I really enjoyed the Guide of High School, the manhwa version of it, where I wasn't a huge fan of the anime. I feel like we spent a lot more time with each individual character in the manhwa, and I grew to like all 3 of these characters. I think my favorite of them have to be this dude right here and this girl right here. So yeah, his name is I think like Mori Jin, and her name might be Mina or something. I can't remember this dude's name too well. He's probably like the least eventful character so far in the series. Like he's got a thing with one of his buddies. Like they were like delinquents or whatever, you know, like in the school they were in together, and like his buddy's dying, I think of like cancer or something. He's really sick, and pretty much there is this tournament called the God of High School tournament, and you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can basically beat somebody near to death in this tournament, and they won't die because I think they took like these nano sorts of pills or whatever that I guess I don't know, like they reconstruct your body on like a cellular level, you know, like they reconstruct your organs or anything that may get destroyed or whatever, and basically you will not die no matter how brutally you are beaten up by your opponent. But I really like the way the action is drawn. I really like there's like I think a thing in there with the mangaka. I'm sorry, with the manhwa artist where he kind of explains everything, you know, and I really liked it quite a bit. You know, there's another manhwa that I'd read called The Boxer, and I read the first volume of it. I have the second volume somewhere, and I'm going to be starting that sooner or later. But it kind of reminded me of that. You know, love the artwork in this thing. The characters are a ton of fun. Like I said, I really like these two. I love their dynamic. I think her, I guess I keep saying, I think her name is Mina, and then his name is Mori Jin. But yeah, those two were my favorite characters. Like she's got this sword that she has. It's like a wooden sword. That's like her father's sword, and she had like this really patriarchal sort of upbringing, where she needs to meet a man, and she needs to meet like a strong man and get married because you know that's what's expected of her. That's the gender role that she has been essentially assigned by the family in which she grew up. But she is like an absolute monster. This girl is an absolute beast. Like she is so tough, dude. She's like tough as all nails. She's tough as hell, you know, just like a tough as nails character. And I really like that. I like her a lot. And Mori Jin kind of reminds me of like dudes like Yuji from Jujutsu Kaisen, and they all together, the three of them kind of do give me like, you know, JJK vibes. But for the most part, I think that it is a solid read, and I'm looking forward to, you know, where it's gonna go in volume 2. Dude, I'm super excited to see, you know, what kind of wild action the story's gonna have, because this one so far has had some pretty decent action. And this dude right here, like there's like power rankings, you know, and each one of them has like, I think she's like a 9 in the power ranking, and can't remember what he was, but like they have, you know, power rankings where I think 9 is like pretty high, and then he's like a 6, which is like mediocre. Kind of reminded me a little bit of like Tower of God, you know, where like they're trying to ascend this tower or whatever. Kind of gave me some vibes of that, you know, with the power system. He seems like this goofball because his character really is just like being a total goofball. Like there's a part where like he and this girl are chasing a thief, you know, that stole a purse and whatever, and he's on his bike, and then the girl gets on his shoulders and she crashes into a post. And yeah, dude, it's a ton of fun, man. I'm really glad that I decided to pick up the manhwa because I'd seen the anime and I couldn't really get into the anime, and I was like, you know what, let me check out the manhwa. Maybe, you know, like if I see it drawn, because that was a thing that other people had, you know, that they weren't huge fans of the anime, but that the manhwa was like a ton better. So I figured, you know what, I'll heed that, you know, I'll take what people said about the manhwa and I'll check out the manhwa. And it was definitely a great decision to have checked it out. And yeah, I definitely recommend reading The God of High School. And then up next, we've got My Poison Princess is Still Cute. So this is just, for the most part, like a super adorable series, dude. You know what I mean? Like, there really isn't much to gain from reading this. And this series is by Chihiro Sakutake. And it is a really adorable series, and she is super cute. And it is, like, if you're a fan of these sorts of stories, you know, like super cutesy, you know, over the top, like, over the top in the sense that all the characters are like just absolute goofballs, you know, because like it's pretty safe, I would say. Like there's no nudity. It's pretty tame, pretty inoffensive in my opinion. Maybe somebody else might find something to be offended by in it, but I really don't see how. She is a super adorable character. There's this knight who pretty much is immortal, and she secretes poison, hence the name My Poison Princess. But yeah, she secretes this poison whenever she's like in a situation where her emotions are like running rampant or whatever. She secretes like a poison, and this knight who happens to be immortal dies over and over to her poison. And for political reasons, the king of like the human world makes this knight, become betrothed to this demon girl, and in that way they can kind of like make an alliance, I guess, if you will, between the demon world and the human world. And basically, what ends up happening is she marries the prince, and because of the fact that she has this poison, and anytime they get close to each other, she gets nervous or whatever, and she kills him. But when she kills him, he comes back, and he can come back to life as long as there's like clothes nearby, like any sort of clothing whatsoever. As long as there's something nearby that he can, I guess, like respawn into, like he'll come back to life. And it's really funny, because like he comes back in like just like a random, I don't even know what, like pair of boxers or something, and then he comes back in like in a mermaid outfit, and he's got like pasties or something over the nipples, and he's like, why is this even in the castle? But it's really random, and there's parts like that are really fun, and every page is kind of like a different little section, I guess, if you will. Like every single page, it'll have a title and then kind of like what's going on, like a Saturday morning cartoon, or like the newspaper. Like I don't know how many of you are old enough that, like myself, that you read the paper, you used to read the funnies or whatever in the paper, but I used to do that when I was a kid. And that's kind of what it makes me think of, is reading the funnies in the newspaper as a kid, where like it has a title and then it shows you like what's going on, and then literally the next page over has the title and then what's going on or whatever. And that's literally like step by step how this is set up. I like all the characters. There's a dude who is a ghost, and he wears like a bag over his head or something, like kind of like a pillowcase or whatever over his head. But he's also like a total creep. Like he and the prince, he and the knight. I'm sorry, him and the knight. He and the knight start having like this session of concocting ideas or whatever, or coming up with ideas on dresses that they can put the princess into, and like there's all sorts of random dresses, and the ghost dude's ideas are all really perverted. They're all like really over the top, really perverted, and then the knight's ideas are more like wholesome or whatever, because it just shows that that's like the kind of guy that he is, and he's like a really just like a sweet dude. And the princess has like these two dolls that are like, yeah, pretty much just that. They're dolls, but they have, I guess, like souls or whatever. And they also like just make fun of her nonstop, and then they start making fun of the knight as well. Just kind of like teasing them, and trying to like push them closer together in a sense. But because of her poison, she just keeps killing the prince. I'm sorry, I keep calling him the prince, the knight. She just keeps killing the knight over and over again, and like within like 3 pages, I think she'd killed him like 6 or 7 times, literally within like 3 pages, and it's so funny, dude. I really like her design. I feel like it was a really well thought out sort of look for this character, because like when you start flipping through the pages, like it'll show you the way that they'd envisioned her looking. At one point she was like a lot darker looking, and she had at another time she had like horns or whatever. And I'll be honest, like she has a tail, and I'll be honest, like I kind of liked the look that she had at one point before, I guess, the manga actually started being written, where she had horns. I kind of like that look, and I still feel like she would have looked really good with the horns. If you picked this series up, or if you read it for yourself, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But I feel like I would have liked it a lot more, liked her look a lot more if she did have the horns. But she does have a tail, and it's pretty cute. And she's got this bow right there on her tail. That was a gift from the knight. So there's a lot of little things, like he gifts her that bow, and then pretty much for the rest of the manga, for the rest of this volume, after he'd gifted her the bow, she wears the bow that he gifted her. So I think that's a nice, little piece of continuity, where it's not like just a random thing that happened and then it just goes out the window. There are things that happen, and like they come back, and though it is kind of like quite segmented, there is like a through line, and I like that. It's not just this thing happened and now that thing happened and now this thing's happening and then that's gonna happen or whatever, and none of it ties into each other. It is a continuation, so I do respect that, and I do like the series, and I know there's a fan base out there for it. I'm sure there's people that can't wait for the next volume or whatever is coming out. I think volume 2 is out now. I do recommend it if you are a fan of like super cutesy, adorable stories. I don't think you could go wrong with this, or if you know somebody that is a fan of like super duper, or if you know somebody that is a fan of like super duper adorable stories, I think that you or that person will definitely enjoy this one. Alrighty, I am excited to talk about Origin. I loved this damn series, dude. I loved Origin Volume 1. This thing was an absolute blast to read, dude. This is what 100% an android would more than likely act like in a real life situation. Just cold as all hell, no compassion, no sense of anything other than whatever the programming is that this dude is set with. That's how he is going to act, or she is going to act. This machine that has been given kind of like these preset sort of mannerisms or whatever, because that's literally what Origin is. Who is this dude right here? I'm pretty sure his name is Origin. If I'm mistaken, I'll put what the name is somewhere around here. But this is by Boichi, and Boichi is just an absolutely incredible mangaka. The artwork in Origin is absolutely jaw-dropping at times, dude. And I'm so bummed that I didn't read this last year, because if I would have read this last year, it would have 100% made my favorite things 2023 video. Because just by looking at that cover art, I feel like that tells you everything you need to know. Boichi is just an absolutely brilliant artist, writer, mangaka, whatever. Like he is one half of the duo that created Dr. Stone. He's also got plenty of other series. I always talk about him, but I'm going to keep talking about him because he deserves to have his series mentioned. He did Wallman. He did Sun Can Rock. I'm blanking, but yeah. But Origin is just such a wild ride, dude, and I feel like you will not go wrong. If you're a fan of like hard sci-fi stories, I think you're gonna like Origin. If you like the series Heartgear, I think you're gonna like this. Heartgear has a little bit more of a heart, I guess, if you will, forgive the pun, for lack of a better word. Well, like there's a little bit more heart to it, like there's more emotion, even though like they're androids or whatever, or robots, there's a little bit more emotion to it. This is like straight up just like cold, calculated as all hell, and I loved every second of it. And it feels to me like this is 100%, like I said this already before when I was talking about it, but it feels 100% the way that I envision like an android acting. They're not gonna be like, oh, I suddenly discovered, that I have humanity or whatever. They're going to act according to whatever program there is preset, I guess, whatever program they're installed with. And that's kind of like what this dude does. He acts within the range of emotions or whatever of this program that he was beset with. And everything he does, his mannerisms, everything down to the core of himself, survival and whatnot, is because of the programming. And I thought that was brilliant, and I love the detail, because there's a lot of little minute, like really pedantic details that are involved in the process of this manga. And this is only the first volume that I've read. I have volume 2. I picked volume 2 up in my January-February haul, and I haven't started it yet, but I will start it hopefully pretty soon, because I really want to see, where it's going to go, because this one leaves off on like this really wild cliffhanger. And I don't want to say too much about the story itself, because I don't want to start spoiling it. Like literally with what I just said right now, like all the stuff about the programming and whatnot, that's kind of a spoiler. But I mean, I'm not telling you like what happens, but for the things that do happen are pretty ruthless. Like just super logical, I guess, if you will, like, which is like a machine, right? Like a machine is logical, doesn't think based on emotion, thinks based on logic. And based on that, just I thought it was absolutely brilliant, toppled with Boichi's just incredible writing. And there's an android in this that reminded me of one of the characters in Blade Runner. I forgot what her name is, and I'll put her character right there. I forgot what that character's name is, but she reminded me so much of that character, where she's like sweet and innocent looking, but then she turns out to just be like this cold blooded killer. This for me, of everything that I read, I think this is my absolute favorite. I love the way that his character is designed, and like he kind of like swaps out faces or whatever. Like there's this film, I think it's called Surrogates or something, with Bruce Willis, where like these people live inside of like machines or whatever, or these people like, I guess it's kind of like like the way that's going on with like the Apple, the Apple Vision or whatever it is that like though that thing you wear, but in a much more like dystopian sort of a sense. I think that's what that movie was called, like Surrogates or something. And that's kind of what this made me think of. And it makes me think of all the things that I always mention every time I talk about like cyberpunk stories, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to keep mentioning them, other than like I'll say, just for the hell of it, let's say William Gibson's Neuromancer, just for the hell of it. But it does, it works. Blade Runner 2048 or 2049, I'm sorry. This actually takes place in 2048, the year before Blade Runner 2049 takes place. And I don't know when this was written, so I don't know if there's any chance that maybe, there's a little bit of an inspiration there, from Blade Runner 2049. Or maybe it's just coincidence, that they take place like literally like a year apart. But gory as all hell violence. The character designs are absolutely brilliant. I've loved just every damn second of this thing. His character is a lot of fun, because of the programming that he has. Like he can be like a total goofball, and then like at a moment's notice just be like on, you know what I mean, and be like just be in like ruthless killer mode. And he ends up pissing off some other androids that like try to hunt him down because he did a really dumb thing and they didn't like the thing that he did. And he thinks that he's sending them a message to stay away, and they're just like, "Nah, son, we're coming after you now." It's like you've pretty much pissed us off, so now we're coming for blood. But yeah, dude, I loved this first volume. I'm so excited to read the next one. And if you've read this, I'd love to know what you think. If you've read Hardgear and you liked Hardgear, I think you're going to like this. And yeah, just for the most part, overall, this is going to be the thing that I recommend. All right, so next up, we've got Nina, the Starry Bride. This is by a mangaka named Rikachi. This is one that I picked up, for the most part, solely based on that cover art, because that cover art really did sell me. I like the character designs. I love the way they look. I like the way that Nina looks, and she ends up at one point in time in this manga assuming an identity. I hope that's not like too big of a spoiler for you all, but pretty much like this girl right here assumes the identity of a princess who is, for lack of a better word, indisposed. So she assumes the identity of a princess, and then he is like a prince in a sense. He's kind of like he can't become, I guess, like if you will, like a king or whatever for this reason involving his dad, who is the king or whatever. I'm pretty sure. I might be mistaken there. I might not have been paying. I might not have been paying too close. I might not have been paying too close attention there. But yeah, his little brother, who's like 9, 10 or whatever, is set to become the king, and he's kind of like a handler, I guess, if you will. I kept thinking of like Game of Thrones, like the way that that's set up in that show. I keep thinking of that, like for lack of a better, description, I'm thinking of like Jaime Lannister, right? Where like he can't become anything because when he was really young, was put in the knights. Because when he was really young, he became a knight, so he can't marry, he can't have kids, even though he does. But yeah, kind of like this dude's in that situation, where like he is kind of like a handler, I guess, if you will, and he does like, he's like behind the scenes, he does a lot of like, he talks to everybody and sets up all these different situations as kind of like the right hand man of the king, which is going to be his little brother at one point in time, and then the queen is his stepmom, and she's just the most miserable human being on earth. And I love to hate that character. And I love those kinds of characters like Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones. Those characters where you just love to hate them. Like, that's the kind of character that she is for me. Like, I just cannot stand her. Whenever the queen had any sort of presence, I was just like, bro, I hate this woman so damn much. I really like this. I'm 100% picking up the next volume of this. I don't think I've ordered it yet, but I will order it. I'm probably going to end up ordering it from like Crunchyroll or something. But I'm 100% going to be picking up the second volume of this because like I need to know what happens next. I absolutely loved it. This was so much fun, dude. The series was absolutely really well done. I love the characters. Like, everyone in it, I think, does their thing and they do it well. Even the queen, who like I hate, you know what I mean? Like, that's how much of an impact she had on me, and that's how well written I think that she is, or at least, to the end that the mangaka was looking for, for people to hate her, I guess. And I really like Nina, I like the role that she ends up taking on, because she's kind of like a street cat, I guess, if you will. She's like pretty much grew up on the streets and didn't really have a family or anything. And her only family were like these two little brothers who at one point end up selling her out. And she has to kind of like become regal, and he tries to teach her to become regal. And it's really funny, because she is, for the most part, like, from the streets. She belongs to the streets. So it's really difficult for him to kind of like make her, mold her, you know what I mean, into this thing that she is not. And I loved it, dude. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous. The story is so much fun. I love the characters. I love their dynamic. I think there's going to be another character introduced in this series who is going to be like the dude who she's going to be betrothed to, which is a dude from another kingdom or whatever. But yeah, like, I have nothing but praise for this series. And if you hear a dog barking, babysitting or dog sitting or whatever, my brother's dog, so you may hear him in the background. There's nothing I can do about that. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's unfortunate. First, we had like somebody was doing construction somewhere. It looks like they stopped because it's kind of late in the day now, so they stopped, and now the dog's barking at something. So if you hear him, I'm sorry. There's really not much that I can do about it. But yeah, I've got nothing but praise for this, dude. I think that it is definitely well worth reading. If you like, I guess, I'm not really sure if this is shoujo manga or not, but because I'm really not that familiar with shoujo manga. I've read a few things that are shoujo, but I really don't know like what, overall constitutes as a shoujo manga. But whether this is that or not, I really liked it. There's a little bit of violence at one point near the end of the volume that I completely was not expecting. It caught me totally off guard. I feel like it gave off a little bit of badassery for one of the characters in the series. So overall, I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of, I don't know how to talk about this, because like it is kind of cute. It's definitely kind of cute. It's not nearly as cute as my Poison Princess is still adorable. It's still cute, or like that's just like an adorable manga. This is more of like, there are some more serious, not super duper serious, but there are some more serious parts of this manga. But overall, it is a lot of fun. That's what I want to say more than anything. It's a fun series. If you like manga that's fun, the artwork is beautiful, the characters are a ton of fun, the situations, like there's some geopolitical stuff going on. It's not like super, it's not like Dune, you know what I mean? You're not reading Dune, but it does have like some political stuff going on. And I do quite enjoy the presentation here. From the artwork right here on the cover that sold me, to the characters contained within, to the situations that they get into. At one point, she's trapped in a well with the young prince who's going to become king. And there is, she ends up bringing, I guess, like fun to these people's lives, because they had like these really like rigid, strict lives. And she kind of brings like a humanity to them, I guess, if you will. I don't know if that's corny or not, but I mean, it's kind of true. And it definitely is something that put a smile on my face. You know what I mean? When I was reading it, it definitely put a smile on my face. It made me want to read more of it. I do want to read more of it. It's because maybe what I'm thinking might happen isn't actually what's going to happen. And, it's not. So far, I don't feel like it's going to be too predictable, but it might be, because it looks like she might start racking up some dudes, so it might turn into a harem. Kind of hope it doesn't turn into a harem. But you know what, there is a chance that it will. Regardless, I do recommend this if you are a fan of this sort of a story. And just looking at the artwork, I feel like the people that like this sort of a thing know who they are. And the people who would rather read like Origin, you know who you are. So yeah, pretty much the fan base is there. Alright, so we're going to close this thing out with The Witch and the Night Will Survive. Alright, so this manga, the story for this manga is by a mangaka named Dai Chikamoto, and the art is by an artist named Gonbe Shinkawa. So, I really loved this series. So this is like the first one of these that I do, like, because I always do like currently readings. I just pick up 5 random volumes of manga, and that came out, you know, within a certain span of time, and then like I try to like see how I feel about them, and I already have it preset. You know what, I'm going to talk about these 5. I'm going to read these 5, and these are going to be for this video. So sometimes I end up not liking one of them, but I said I was going to read it for that video, so like I just finish it, and then if I didn't really like it, I'll tell you, you know, in the video, like I read this as a part of this video, and I liked it or I didn't like it. And so far for this video, I've enjoyed all of these. They're all so well done, and I think The Witch and the Night Will Survive right after Origin. If I hadn't read Origin for this video, I think that this would have been my absolute favorite. This is my second favorite. The Witch and the Night Will Survive. The first like 15-ish pages are just absolute chaos, dude. I don't want to say too much about it. I don't want to get too into that because I don't want to spoil too much of that, but this dude pretty much gears up for war, and it is the setup, the way that like just the vitriol, you know, vitriol or whatever in his face, the hate that roils within him as he goes to hunt down this being that brought immeasurable pain and anguish to him, to his family, and killed these people that he loved. Or he thinks that it was this being that lives in the woods that is this witch. He assumes that it's her that brought him this pain and suffering, and he wants to unleash just torrential hell on this witch, and just unload every single bit of hate and anger, just vehemence, or whatever, however you pronounce that word. Just wants to unleash it all onto this witch and just destroy her and just absolutely eviscerate this poor woman. And after he does these horrible things, he realizes that she isn't even the one that, you know, hurt him, and she isn't even the one that caused him all of this pain and this grief and whatnot. And it's just like, you just watch some of the most brutal acts of violence in the span of like 15 or so pages. So if you're like, yeah, if you're not somebody that can, you know, handle like pretty brutal violence, and especially, you know, given that it is like super brutal violence against a woman, if you're somebody that really doesn't want to see something like that, then yeah, I don't know if you want to read this. And other than that, you know what I mean, like it's such a solid read. The way that the architecture is done for these buildings, you know, and like this really Middle Ages, you know, kind of a look, I guess, if you will, like I want to say like definitely like pre-Victorian era, like really fantasy, I guess. That's all I can think of best to describe it, as like a really fantasy setting, you know what I mean? Like every fantasy anime or fantasy manga that you've read always has the same, you know, wooden buildings or whatever. And that's literally this. You can see that too just by looking at this, you know, like it has like the same sort of architecture that you would find in like a fantasy manga. But I really like the characters in this. I like the woman who is the witch. She has like this really childish sort of wonderment and personality. It makes the things that he does to her at the beginning a lot more, you know, it makes it more screwed up, you know, that he did that. But at the same time, it's like he didn't know, you know what I mean? To him, he literally just lost everybody that he loved. His parents are gone, his whole town is gone, and he wants to take that all out on the person, on the being that he thinks did it, and he thinks that it was her that did it, and then he comes to realize that it wasn't her. And there's a lot more stuff that happens that I won't go into, but this definitely reminds me of like kind of like a little bit of ReZero, in that it's like just absolutely ruthlessly violent, and I like that aspect of it a lot. I like him as a character, even though like that thing happened, but I kind of feel like I don't want to say it's justifiable, but it is understandable in a sense, where he didn't realize, he didn't know what this being was that had attacked him, and that's his sister right there. But there's other characters, that come into play that come into the fold of this story, and they kind of round out this fantasy sort of a setting, this fantasy world, and make it feel inhabited. And there's different things that happen that make it feel lived in, and that's something that I like. I like the world that feels lived in. There's different nations or whatever. There's a kingdom that exists in this story, and where they're at, they live next to like this woods that is cursed, and the cursed woods is what cursed his family. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Annihilation, the film Annihilation. There is just, I feel like this is a story that's gonna, as it goes, the world will open up more, and we'll see more of, the surrounding nations and whatnot. And I feel like it's gonna become a pretty open, sort of world with a lot of like world building, and that's something that I really like. I feel like if you're gonna have a fantasy story, you have to have, world building, and you have to have these different nations with these different ideals and different backgrounds and ways of doing things, and it needs to kind of make sense, for all of them. It can't be the same thing, otherwise it's redundant, it's boring. Like, who wants to consume a story where every nation is the exact same? Like, there has to be like little different things, that separates each nation in the world or whatever for it to work. I'm thinking like Brandon Sanderson, if you've ever read The Way of Kings, that sort of thing, or even like Patrick Rothfuss, his books that he's done in the King Killer Chronicles series, like The Name of the Wind or whatever. Just these worlds that are rich, they're lived in, you know what I mean? Like, there's a history there, and it feels like this is a story that kind of has that, and it's gonna go into that a lot more as it progresses. And I like that right off the bat, it kind of showed you that it can be a pretty brutal, pretty ruthless sort of world. And like I said before, with like the witch, she's kind of like a child. She's a grown woman, but she has like this childish sort of mentality. Like, I just watched this movie literally yesterday called Poor Things that I absolutely loved. I loved every second of Poor Things, and I didn't really think about it until right now that, I'm talking about The Witch in the Night Will Survive, that the character in that movie kind of reminds me of the witch in this, you know what I mean? Where she's like, kind of like new to the world, she's discovering things for the first time and seeing all of these different sights and whatnot, and kind of becoming a person, becoming a character from sort of like an infancy, I guess, if you will, where like she had no real personality. She's kind of like a child, and she grows into a person, into a woman. And the witch in this, at one point in time tells him that she hates him, like straight up is like, I hate you. And it was so like, I don't know, dude, but it was justified. You like, her hate of him, it was 100% justified. And yeah, it kind of reminded me, like I said, of like Poor Things. And I feel like this is a series that can, become a really solid manga over time, because this first part absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I feel like there isn't a single volume of manga that I read here that was a loser. So, I don't know what your poison is. I don't know what you like to read, but right here, we've got this one. This is a ton of fun. I really liked it. If you like, just like action, sort of like tournament manga, I think you'll like this. If you like super cutesy sort of manga, you know what I mean? I think that you will enjoy this one if that's the type of thing that you are a fan of. If you want like a good, like, hard sci-fi manga, I highly recommend this. This is my personal favorite of the lot. Nina, the Starry-Eyed Bride was another treasure. This one, like, I honestly picked it up because I liked that cover art, and it turned out to be an incredible story. And then we've got this is probably my second favorite of the lot right here, The The Witch and the Night Will Survive. If you like world building and, you know, like sorts of like fantasy stories that are pretty brutal and definitely kind of edgy, I think you're gonna enjoy The Witch and the Night Will Survive. So yeah, like I said earlier in the video, I am on Patreon now. If you want to support me through there, you can. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I would 100% appreciate the donation. I got a ton of stuff going on. I'm always going to have, you know, a lot of stuff going on this channel. And I'm looking forward to, you know, dropping a lot of stuff in 2024, even into like April or whatever. I've got a lot of videos, you know, that I'm going to be working on. I got one about smoking behind. I've got one about smoking behind a supermarket that I'm going to be dropping hopefully after this. And then I'm going to be doing a video about Akira Toriyama, the late Akira Toriyama, who we all well, honestly all of us, but a lot of us grew up with his stuff. And I know I personally grew up with Dragon Ball Z. You know, like I grew up with this, you know, this is my childhood. I grew up watching Dragon Ball, so I've got a video that I'm going to be doing about Akira Toriyama at some point. I'm not going to do it until, like, you know, I have everything set, because I don't want to, like, just to get it out right now because he just passed away or whatever. Because I don't like to do things where it feels like I'm trying to capitalize on a thing. I'm going to do it honestly because it's something that really meant, like, his work really meant a lot to me. So I'm going to take my time with that and drop that video when it is ready to be released, and not, you know, drop it because I'm trying to capitalize. That's really screwed up to me, you know, trying to, like, get a video out just to capitalize on somebody's passing. I'm going to get a video out about it because, you know, it's something that I grew up with. You know, a lot of us grew up with it. A lot of us grew up with Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z or whatever. So that's something that I do want to do to show, you know, as an ode to that creator, as an ode to, you know, yeah, like, to that mangaka and to the things that he did and the incredible legacy that he had. So, and that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for spending this incredible time with me. This incredibly long time. I didn't mean to talk this much, but it inevitably happens. So, thank you so much for hanging out. Please take care of yourselves until the next time that we meet.
Yo, it's himself, the Shadowrunners clique, aka Sleep Allah. Take you on a mental and live for one day, y'all. Sheets, y'all. Guns, y'all. Yo, who got the guns, you got the coke. Hustling them through like big punch cholesterol before he croak. Rest in peace, but I bless in peace and live to one day laying shoots. Rap over beats and tell wild stories, the mythology mystery. Choke on your own misery, fuck them, we're the wild bunch. Yo, I asked him if this bike could punch. This shit made me lose my lunch. Bro grabbed the rocket, I said chill before he cocked it.